Okay, my name is Eric Wilson. I work for KCI Associates in Raleigh. I'm here to talk about a solution that we use. It's open source. It's not something that we provide. It's not something that we have built. And it's not something that we use as something really to make money. It's something that we use to build relationships. And if an account or client is pleased with what we use Open Data Kit for, then that's great. And that serves to build a relationship with the client and things move forward. So my background is I've been down here for about 2 years, started out in Maryland, and spent some time in county government, about 10 years, but before that I was in the private sector. Now I'm back in the private sector again. And I want to talk to you about the open source software used at our company, just because it's one of those things that is very unique, I think, in a lot of ways for certain entities like governments to embrace. And I think this is a technology that I would encourage either governments or other businesses to embrace, just because it's one that saves a lot of time, it utilizes the investments of others, and it kind of follows along with that open source initiative. And I think it's a product worth supporting. So what is it? Open Data Kit's a suite of tools. It's open source, so you can grab the code and do whatever you want to do with it. But it's a suite of tools. It's not just a simple, like a mapping program or something like that. It is a suite of tools which allows you to author a mobile application on an Android device. So we're talking about an Android program that runs in an Android world. You can deploy with the application. You can also manage your data with the application. So it was funded by Google itself. It was about $1 million invested in it through a Google grant, and it went through the University of Washington, their Department of Computer Science and Engineering. There's a growing community of developers and implementers and users of it. And basically what it allows you to do, you can go to opendatakit.org and see everything I'm going to tell you here. But basically what happened was they were having problems recording information in the worldwide area of health, and especially in Africa. And so what Google did is they put this grant out there to try to help that initiative along, helping people in Africa with the health programs. And basically what Open Data Kit allows you to do is fill out a paper form digitally and submit it. And as part of that work, you end up with a large data set that you need to view and work with. And so Google basically funded the University of Washington to build a three-pronged approach. You have a web repository, you have a mobile device that has the application on it, and then you have basically a dashboard that allows you to view the data from the mobile devices that are being utilized. So you can have a ton of mobile data capture initiatives in the field, like 40, 45 users in the field, dumping data into an online hosted web repository. Usually it's a MySQL database that sits out there. And basically all that data then can be managed and reported upon back at your home base. So your users can be remote and they can check in remotely and then upload your data, and then you can see it in a dashboard format that you can report on. So that's sort of the feel for Open Data Kit. The company itself, we use Open Data Kit across most of our region of experience. A lot of work we've done with Open Data Kit has been in Texas for projects with Verizon, where we're capturing information about they're laying fiber, and so we give daily reports and hourly reports on what's being done in the project, with photographs, with digital signatures, things like that that get put in through the software platform. And then we also utilize the product in North Carolina. We've done some work with the DOT, capturing information about mitigation sites. We've also done some work with it in Florida for Duke Power, for some of their poll capture initiatives. Same with Carolina here, we've done some work for Duke. And then we've also used it up in Maryland, mainly for the company itself, just doing some test bed work, things like that. It can be used across a variety of different platforms. It's not like this is an application that's specific to any kind of data capture type. We've used it for construction inspection. We've used it for documenting different activities related to transportation, like checking the status of bridges. Site facilities, we've attached it to survey reports. The largest implementation has been through our communications infrastructure group, That's with some of the fiber projects we've been working on. The environmental area, that's where we spend most of the time working on it with the DOT. And then in our resource management group as well, we've also used it for some areas of Indiana for captures of data. What I'm going to do is kind of just talk about the suite of tools and then give you a demo, kind of show you what's going on. But the demo I'm going to have to give from over there, so it might not be that easy to see or hear. I'm not sure how to get that over here, but we'll try. So these are the suite of tools. I don't use all these tools. When I put together an ODK application, these are the ones that are on the site that the Open Data Kit platform has. There's the build tool, which allows you to generate forms. Like if you're going to build a form for a mobile application and you want it to look nice and snazzy, you can use build. I use XLSForm, and this is kind of neat. What this allows you to do is build a form for your mobile device with Excel. And so for those of you who are comfortable in Excel or don't do any programming or things of that nature, this is what's really nice about that. For me, I'm more of a developer by trade, but I can't be doing it in Excel because it's fast and it's clean. And so even though I might prefer to have like a code repository and do a lot of other things like that, if I need to drop something in the field, I'll use XLSForm. And we've gone from nothing to having a web repository database and application in the field under an hour using XLSForm. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Validate is a product that they have out there that different websites have implemented that basically checks your form. Lets you see if the form you've designed in Excel and published will validate and will actually display correctly in your mobile device. Form Uploader is a tool that allows you to get your Excel published form up to your repository for others to download. So a lot of times what you find is you have a bunch of people who have an Android device, but they don't have the application on it. So how do you get the application from the form that you created by your hand on your desktop to the person out in the field? What you do is you publish it with a form uploader, and it goes into the web repository. And the web repository is called Aggregate for ODK. And so what users do is they go up to the Aggregate repository, log in, and they pull a copy of the form down so they can have it on their handheld device. So that's what the form uploader does. Collect is actually the application itself on your Android. So once you've downloaded the form, it displays and works because the collect application you've installed on your phone. So that's the way the actual form you design is implemented. And then aggregate is, in the end, the way the data is viewed from the project management perspective. So if you're a project manager, you're back at the office and you have like 45 people out in the field all collecting data, and you want to see what data they're collecting and how it looks, you want to pull some reports, Aggregate allows you to do that. All of this was written by the University of Washington. All of it is free. All of it is available to you whenever you want. A lot of people go the free route all the way through, and they'll put this whole thing inside of a Google implementation. So their database will sit in Google, and they'll put any of their forms up in Google so people can download. It's a really smooth way to go. We don't use Google in our area. We actually use we use MySQL in our own hosted environment. You'll see me access that in a little bit. But you can also use Amazon Web Services to do it. And the person who actually does most of the implementation for us is out of Texas, and it's nice because he is implemented out of Texas, but we utilize it regularly in the Carolinas. And since it's all in the cloud, it really doesn't matter where it comes from. It's just available for us to use. And I'm sorry, there's also Briefcase. And Briefcase is a nice way to move your data, sort of like an export routine from your project management world out to other formats that you can go for. So how does it work? So this is basically what the workflow looks like when you're going to play around with ODK. You would start with your Microsoft Excel document. You would customize it, help to get the drop downs and things like that to appear the way you want them to. You would upload that form to the cloud. You would use Aggregate and collect to push data back and forth. What's nice is, walk away from the mic, here you can have multiple iterations of these forms. So let's say you're out in the field, and all of a sudden, as a project manager, you realize that the people who are out in the field right now, their form is incorrect or their form needs additional data added to it. You can come into your project management portal and publish a new form that these people can pick up, and it'll carry the data into the new form. So that's very nice. So it offers a little bit of flexibility. And then here you go back and forth to the cloud. And so anytime a person syncs with the cloud, whether it's in the field or back at the hotel at night, you can push data back and forth. So we had service in the field for most of our work in Texas, which was kind of unusual what we did. And you could push real-time data back to our home-based aggregate dashboard, so you had a live feed. And then once it's up into your MySQL database or SQL Server, whatever it is, you can do whatever you want as far as pulling reports. And so that's been the real advantage that a lot of people have been able to exploit at the company with the client is if I'm working with a client and they want to see all the data together in one lump, they can now. They can see how many different types of structures are failing, how many people have, operated that day, things like that. And those custom reports, that actually is where I, as a person who serves the client, that's the only place that we actually can really see a profit out of this whole project is if there's a bunch of custom reports that need to be written. So just to be straight up with you, that's kind of where, if there's anything that generates any income for us, it's in that area. But the rest of this, if you're simply looking to collect data and then put it into a GIS and have that data accessible with point clouds or whatever point data sets, that is really very, very low cost for the implementation. The only real cost is hiring an employee who knows how to do it. So there's a little bit there. If you're going to do this in a minimal set of way, you can use XLSForm to generate the forms, use the form uploader, and then use the collect for your device and aggregate. That's sort of the minimal set of tools that we use and works really great. What I'll do is I'll try to show you a live demo. I don't know how much you're going to be able to hear or see of me. I'll probably grab a seat, turn it around, try to talk to you that way and see how that works. But I'll show you how we do what we do with it, and then open it up for some questions after that point. Let me grab a seat here. Yeah. So, can everybody hear me okay? All okay? Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing we have, if we're looking at ODKs, we have this Excel tablet, Excel form. So what we're really shooting for is an application that can be taken out into the field. So when we're testing this, we actually use a program called BlueStacks, which is an Android emulator that'll run on your tablet. I mean, it'll run on your Windows-based product as a tablet, so you can test your stuff out and you can see how it looks and works. That's one way. But we also have, like we were talking about, the online testing tool that will validate the forms, and I'll show you that as well. So BlueStacks is great. I use it to play Minecraft with the kids. It's a variety of different reasons for that. But it's a good product. It provides a lot of functionality. So we'll start there. So let me show you a collect form, and I'll show you the form itself, and then I'll show you kind of how we get to that point. So what we have is, this is sort of what ODK looks like when you come in raw. You can imagine this being on your handheld device, but it's actually on the screen here. All we're looking for is to create a form. And all a form is, in terms of ODK, you have to think of a form in a different fashion to a form you might design for, like if you're working in Access or something like that, where you pop a form up and you can interact with it and do a bunch of stuff. A form for ODK is an entire set of pages that coalesces into what would be a paper document. So if you think of going out into the field with a piece of paper and filling out that piece of paper as a form, that is what a form is to ODK. A form is not each page in the application. And so that's an important distinction to keep in mind. So if we're going to fill out a blank form, we're going to fill out a blank piece of paper. We're not going to fill out one particular page or one particular Windows dialog. That is not a form. A form is an entire piece of paper. So what we can do is we can say, okay, let's pick one of these guys to do. And what we just did when I brought that up is we went to the server. Well, essentially we went to the server a little before this, and we looked at all the forms that were available, and we pulled a copy of the ones we selected down.
So let me show you that real fast. So if I'm going to grab a form, I can click get a blank form. I'm not sure this is going to connect. We'll see if it will connect over. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the availability. But it did here, which is fantastic. So if you look here, up on our KCI aggregate server, which is the open source place in the cloud where we're headed to, all these different forms or paper documents are available for us to download and fill out. So we could pick any of these we want and simply click on it, and we'd say get selected. And so we make a connection to that web-hosted environment, grab that digital implementation of that paper form, and bring it down to our handheld device. And I've already brought most of these down already, so I don't need to bring another copy down. And then what you do is you would say, okay, now that I've got that form down on my local machine, what I want to do is then fill it out. So you can just click fill blank form. And then at that point, you pick the form you want to fill out, and then you get into your actual work. And so this is where ODK is nice because it also allows you to manage workflow on your mobile device for the people in the field. So we'll take the example of what we did for the NCDOT recently when we went out to look at their mitigation sites as an example. You click on the form, and if you've already started editing one, it'll give you the whole list. If you just want to start from the beginning, you can click Go to Start. And if you think about this, it's very intuitive. You can just drag your finger across like paging through a book, or you can also use the toggle buttons at the top, and it simply pages you through the form. And so you can fill the form out however you would like as you go through. And you can put controls in here, etc., etc. So that's what filling a form and what a form looks like in ODK. So let's take a step back then and show you how we design one before we go all the way through the whole process. So if I'm designing one, I do it in Excel like we talked about. And so if I'm going to say, okay, I want to create a bunch of questions that I want my person in the field to answer, and I want them to be stored in a very logical and retrievable way, you can look at this with the Excel mindset and just say, okay, each item I'm going to fill out is essentially going to be a row in the Excel table. If I want any control inside of that process, I can add if-then statements as well. And so inside Excel here, you see if I want a text box filled out for the site name, I simply tell it I want a text box filled out. I want to call the name of the text box MIT_site_name. And then the label I want to appear for that information is stored in the label category. Now, let's explain what happens now. So I fill out my Excel spreadsheet. I put all the text boxes on. I put any controls I want in there for flow. And then I can put radio buttons on. I can do date pickers. I can ask it to help me take a picture. I can have a place where I can edit the picture. So there's a lot of different functionality that ODK has out of the box that allows you to do. Once I get that all kind of in here, after I've got that, I have to take that Excel spreadsheet and then convert it into something that can be interpreted. And so there's a program out there that is supplied, and it is a program that, let's see here, right here. Actually, I'm not sure if I have it open anymore. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay. It's called XLSForm. An XLSForm is an application that you run, and it takes the Excel spreadsheet and reads it, and then it converts it to an XML document. The XML document is easily translatable into a form once it makes it up onto the web, onto the server. And so what you do is you simply run this application, and it takes my finalized form here, NCDOT Inspection Report XLS, and dumps it into this output folder as an XML file. And this XML file just looks like any other simple XML file. And it basically takes that Excel spreadsheet and interprets it into this XML document. Okay. So now we've gotten to that point. Now we have taken our Excel spreadsheet, we've moved over to an XML document, and now we want to see how that spreadsheet translated. What you can use then is you can use a piece of software that is up on the web that is called Enketo, if I'm not mistaken. Enketo is nice because it lets you test that form out and see how it's going to look on your mobile device without actually having a mobile device present. So before you upload it. So what we'll do is we'll grab that file and we'll display it. So I click an XML file. I click the button to grab my XML file. And I come up here and I grab my XML file. And that is an XLSForm output. And then what you'll see is this thing will take a second to churn, and then it'll throw that up there on the screen. So here's your form that you built in Excel, translated to XML with a free tool, and then you push that to this testing validation routine. And in here you can see how your form will look. So if we were to pull the Excel file up next to it, you can kind of see that side by side. You can kind of see like what I'm talking about here. Here you've got dying. So for mitigation site name, you have mitigation site. Name is the label. Underneath of that, when you fill this in, the MIT underscore site underscore name field receives the data. And so here you've got this form that you've taken care of. You filled out the whole form. So let's take a look at some of the options we've got in there. We have radio buttons. You can pick on counties that we were going to do. We have whether or not we have some yes no boxes that control flow. If you get down here, what's kind of nice, there you see these two boxes here that see if there are any natural changes or any man-made changes. Inside that Excel file, you can actually put some flow of control so that if there are any natural changes to the site, you click yes, it opens up like a subset, a subpanel. You can start filling out what changes were there. Was there flooding? Yes. Okay, if there was flooding, yes, tell me about the flooding and get me a GPS coordinate of where it's at. So now you've kind of bored into the application a little bit farther. So now you're not just collecting simple data about a location, but now you've got a GPS location, you've got a discussion of where it's at, you've got comments about it, and then what's really nice is you can actually attach a picture in there as well. So here, oops, let me go back. Okay, collect an image for the flooding. Sorry. You'll see this when we get to the actual implementation in BlueStacks. But you can actually collect a picture. So the picture is associated with a location that's taken outside of the picture location that's stored from your phone. So if you've got a Bluetooth GPS, you're going to hook the Bluetooth GPS to the Android application. And now when you take your picture, you've got the description, the photo, the GPS location, and all the information, descriptive information about that all in one place, all managed for you for free. So that's where the power of this thing starts to mount. Now you've got a really, really nice, rich data set that's available to you. So you can go through and fill the whole thing out and then finish some final questions. And that's sort of what the testing phase looks like. So now if we want to push it over, we simply just upload it into our aggregate server and it becomes available. Now anyone who wants to grab that form and uses it goes up to the aggregate server like we just showed you a couple minutes ago, clicks the checkbox, grabs the form, it comes down, now they've got it on their phone, and so when they go to fill it out, like we were showing a minute ago in BlueStacks, they go ahead and they fill out the form. So now if we go in here and we're going to go in and fill out the form, inspection report 2, and let's say we go down to that photo location for flooding. Let's say there's flooding, yes. Let's click here. Whoa, if I can get in there. Okay, so you've got the GPS coordinates for the flooding. You can record. So this is how it looks when you're going to do the GPS off the device instead of in that form validator. So if you're going to click the record location, you click record location, it's going to go look. Obviously, I've got no GPS on my laptop, so it's not going to resolve. The nice part about that is you can also tell it to keep observing your location until you hit a certain level of accuracy. So you can set that way down low, like 3 meters, 2 meters, and you can sit there with a Bluetooth and it will average those points out until you get in close enough to your level of accuracy that you want. If you take a picture, you can click take a picture. It'll look for the phone, so you can take a picture of me. Hi, how you doing? And then that's stored there. You say done. And so now I've got a picture available, and then I can also make comments about the flooding, and then you can kind of move on. The nice part about it is if you've got multiple flooding instances, you have multiple animal instances, multiple animal damage instances or things like that at a site, you can add like as many of these as you want. So you can have all kinds of pictures over your site, all with locations, all grouped by type. All that's possible here. So it's kind of nice. And then in the end, you kind of walk your way all the way through the whole application. And I'll show you, right, it kind of gets, if you're doing a long form like we are here, it takes a while to kind of bore through all your data. But in the end, you name the form. So this is where we come back to the idea that this is a form you're filling out, a piece of paper, and not a specific Windows dialog. When you name this form, so you name it like, Eric's new form, that is saved. So that essentially stores that information as a grouped unit of information in the database. So let's take one step back. You've taken that Excel file now, you've posted it to the database. When you go through the activity of posting that XML file to aggregate, the thing that I didn't talk about that's very powerful is that the software is written as such as it populates the entire database with tables, all the relationships, all the data that you've got about that form is created for you. You don't do any table creation, you don't do any database management. That's all handled for you. So that's very powerful as well. And so then you can exploit that on the other side to drive reports based on the database design that's been built for you. So, and so what I'll show you, the last thing I'll show you is sort of the result of all that work. What you can end up with is you have, this is that form we were just looking at, this NCDOT and Site Inspection Report 2. This is the data that our field crew went out and collected. And so you can see all these different pieces of information that are stored in the dashboard. I'll swing over here to the side. In here you'll see the photographs. Our guys chose to just, shoot some shots, not really do any comments unless they really had something going on wrong. So there's things like that. You can then click on the photo. But at this point, you have the data in there, you know when they did it, you know how they did it, that kind of thing's available. But there's, you can also visualize it through here. Like if you wanted to see, let's say you wanted to visualize like acres and you want to view it in a pie chart, you can view your site that way. If you wanted to view like the number of ones that you walked the boundary on, they walked the boundary on 76% of the sites, but 23 they couldn't. So all that data is stored right off that handheld device. So it's very powerful, your data being in somewhat of a aggregate form. But once again, you're kind of dealing with stock tools. So where KCI kind of comes in the sense of like, okay, now that I've got this data in the database, what are we going to do with it? We've pushed it out into ArcGIS Online, just reading it directly from the database and displaying the points as an event theme. And then as a part of that, you can click on one of these guys and get the information. So this is that information that we've stored. This was an application we did for when you're looking at a pole and it's got power information, power data. Oh shit! Shoot. It's got different pieces of like transformers on the pole, and the transformer has different components as part of it. This was an application we did to basically inventory the pole, look at the components on the pole, and see if a fault tamer was present. And so there was some information they collected about that. That's what we did for them. This is for Duke on the side. They wanted to see a couple of communities done really quickly. So in this case, my technician came in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and said, I have to be out of here by 4. Can you get me a mobile application that I can go out, shoot some locations of poles, take pictures, and then throw it up in ArcGIS Online by the end of tomorrow? We were able to get the thing out in an hour. They were able to put it on their form from home that night, put it onto their tablet from home that night. They were to go out and collect all that data, and we were to put it up on ArcGIS Online by the afternoon. So it's pretty powerful. One more minute. Okay. And then one last thing, we're able to drive custom reports through SQL Server Online Reporting. And so that data that's lumped into that MySQL database, then we can pull out and show it however we want. So not only do you have like the data stored as a point, but then you can take the data that's stored as a point and you can drive it into a report. And this takes a minute to run, so I'll take questions now. I know I threw a lot at you, but it's a cool product. Yeah, sorry.
I understand that the architect online page your design is pulling directly from MySQL.
Right. So what we do is we read it from MySQL, we push it into SQL Server through a connection there, and then I read the SQL Server out into ArcGIS, like an MXD, and then push it all on.
You're not pulling directly from MySQL.
Yeah, it's a direct chain. So it's like bang, bang, bang all across. And it's not like I'm reading a MySQL table. Yeah, I know what you're saying. So, but I could do that as well. I could simply publish it as a service and pull it. So, and you know, it's sort of apples and oranges. You can kind of get the data any way you want. Yeah.
If you have the form already downloaded and you go into a communication restricted environment, so you take all down, and then once you get a connection, I'll upload, or
Yeah.
how that works?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So, if you go to 7-Eleven for lunch and they've got free Wi-Fi, you punch it there. So, yeah.
We're ready for like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it handles all of the type of relationships for the background. So they ask you for
I think that's coming. It's not now though. You know, and there are definitely folks who know more about this product than I do. Yeah. Yep. Right. Okay, so let's take the example of if we're going to do, are there natural changes on the site? So that kind of bores into that multiple level of detail. So here you'd have a group, and so you'd have a select, you have a select, like a select yes or no, and then across here on the right, you'll see one level down, it looks at the result of that inside the Excel table. So if I select yes or no, whatever the result is observed through the tag begin group. And so with that beginning group statement, it looks at that, and that answer could have come 20 items earlier. But if at that point, when that begin group starts, it looks at that result of that control, and if that control is checked yes, then it allows you to spawn into it looks and says, okay, I'm going to open that group up, and I want to do whatever's inside of that group. So inside of that group, I have a note, I have another another yes or no, and then inside of that group, I have the repeat. And the repeat is where I have, if I want to add a group, and a group is like if I want to add a flooding event, and then another flooding event, and then another flooding event. And the documentation on this is really nice. And so you can follow along pretty easily. Yeah. Yeah, the ones here on the right side are the ODK ones. These are the ones that get translated out into the XML file, yeah.
Guys, just double checking. Third presenter did not show up unless you're here. Okay, we're good then.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure at the time.
Okay, cool. They do. If you go to, okay, so here's the result of that report. It takes a while to run that because of the fact that it has the photos in it that are stored in the raw format. And so it takes a little bit to display that. But yeah, if you go up to odk.org, opendatakit.org, I think it is, under use, I think it is, there's the different ways. And inside XLSForm, it has a design, it has a simple Excel file, and it kind of just shows you how to, basically look at it from a basic approach. And so it talks about the way to design and things like that. So it's really nice. So here's like the question types. And so here you have like the select one, the select multiple, the geopoint, and it walks you through how to do that. That's how I end up doing it. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Third presenter didn't show, so that's it.
Okay.
Good.